Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. I'm recording this on Friday night on the 27th. And there's news coming out tonight in case you haven't seen it yet. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but look at this right here. This is on Fox News. This is the next phase of the war, Fox News reporter Trey Yingst says. I've been watching him quite a bit. He posts a lot on X, and he's been doing a lot of good coverage. And if you didn't know, it seems that things have kind of escalated tonight. I'd already mentioned that there had been like other incursions into the West Bank as we're waiting for the ground invasion to start, like the main ground invasion. After we calibrate a little bit, I'm about to show you, it seems like there's maybe only been one other incursion, and then tonight there's like a bigger one that's been going on. So we're going to go over how things are getting to the point where we're almost to this ground invasion. And then there's also a few other things I want to talk about. I'm going to show you some things on X. We're going to look at America and its wars and the implications with this war that's about to break out, or this war that's about to escalate, it seems. There's some interesting things going on in Judaism like this. For the first time in 2,000 years, priests blessing soldiers going to war. And of course, we're talking about the Kohanim, the priests. So that is pretty interesting. And then also, it says here, U.S. Jews supply thousands of tzitzit to Israeli soldiers. And tzitzit, it's not the same as temple garments, but they have a similar function. And you can find out about them in the Bible. I'm going to show you a couple things, but it's just really interesting how there's these two stories about these religious things happening because of the war that seem to be bringing the Jews closer to God and more spiritual. So we have a bunch of things to go over. So let's go back to Fox News. Okay. He says, the war between Israel and Hamas has entered the quote-unquote next phase. Fox News reporter Trey Yingst reported from southern Israel on Friday evening local time. I cannot confirm a ground invasion has begun, but a new phase has begun, he reported live on the air. Tonight there will be Israeli forces inside the Gaza Strip. Whether or not it is a full ground invasion, he added. He stressed, "We have not seen anything like this," adding that Friday evening is unlike any other night we have covered. And of course, he's talking about since the war began. So it really is a new phase and new things are happening. And I'm going to show you one other thing, that communications have been cut tonight, which seems to be a signal that the invasion is going to probably start soon. He said a source inside Gaza told him that Gaza tonight is alone, and the millions of innocent bystanders there feel terrified. Yingst added that Israel's military said it is increasing airstrikes and continuing with its plan to completely destroy Hamas. Mark Regev, a senior advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu, also told Fox, "We are beefing up the pressure on Hamas. Hamas is feeling Israel's might." Okay, so you got that. A new phase, a new and seemingly a much bigger incursion than the first one. And they haven't seen anything like this so far. We are getting to that point. Okay, the Associated Press. Israel steps up air and ground attacks in Gaza and cuts off the territory's communications. Okay. Israel knocked out internet and communications in the Gaza Strip in stepped-up bombardment Friday night, largely cutting off its 2.3 million people from contact with each other and the outside world, and creating a near blackout of information as the military said it was, quote-unquote, expanding ground operations in the territory. I want to say one thing really quick. I'm no military expert, but I know that you have to have the element of surprise. So would it be a surprise if this is actually the beginning of the ground invasion? They want to make it seem like it's just a incursion, but then it's like, oh, wait, no, just kidding. And then it's actually the full thing. So I don't know. And maybe you'll have more information by the time that I post this. But all right, continuing, the military's announcement signaled it was moving closer to an all-out invasion of Gaza, where it has vowed to crush the ruling Hamas militant group after its bloody incursion in southern Israel 3 weeks ago. Explosions from continuous airstrikes lit up the sky over Gaza City for hours after nightfall. And I will attest to that. I was watching Agenda Free TV with Steve Fluckner. He has some live streams that he pays for. And tonight, because I've been watching him basically every single day, and he'll have like the live streams up or the live feeds of Gaza, to watch the airstrikes and stuff like that. And tonight, oh my gosh, it was buzzing. There was a lot of noise going on. There were airplanes, drones, what sounded like tanks and artillery, and possibly even gunfire, I think, at one point. It sounded like a machine gun. So it was, just judging compared to the other live feeds that we've seen since the beginning of the war, it was different tonight. Okay, so the Palestinian telecom provider Paltel said the bombardment caused, quote unquote, complete disruption of internet, cellular, and landline services. The cutoff meant that casualties from strikes and details of ground incursions could not immediately be known. Some satellite phones continued to function. Already plunged into darkness after most electricity was cut off weeks ago, Palestinians were thrown into isolation, huddling in homes and shelters with food and water supplies running out. Relatives outside Gaza panicked after their messaging chats with families inside suddenly went dead and calls stopped going through. Okay, so I don't know. It's like episode 1 of Star Wars, and I don't mean to make light of this situation, but there's a part where they cut all communication to and from Naboo, and then one of like the Queen's counselors like that can only mean one thing: invasion. And that was like what I thought of like when this happened. And it looks like it's imminent. And once it happens, that by itself is going to be a big new phase of the war, and it's going to be most likely an escalation. Okay. Sorry. PA reports Israeli tanks entering Gaza. Sources in the Palestinian Authority reported on Friday evening that Israeli tanks had begun entering the Gaza Strip. According to the reports, gunfire exchanges developed between the troops and armed terrorists. However, Peter Lerner, a spokesperson for the IDF, denied in a conversation with ABC News that the expanded operations are the official ground invasion that has been expected. Now, here's where, I don't know, at least I wonder, is that just the official story? They like have to acknowledge that, yeah, stuff is going on there, but then it turns out to be the real thing. I don't know. We'll see. A U.S. official told ABC News the Israelis are launching a more limited incursion and have agreed to provide humanitarian support in conjunction with the operation. Earlier on Friday evening, IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari announced that the Israeli Air Force has been intensifying its airstrikes in Gaza and added that the IDF ground forces would be intensifying the the ground operation on Friday night. Quote, in recent hours, we have increased the strikes in Gaza. The Air Force is attacking underground targets and terrorist infrastructure. Very significantly, very significantly, in continuation of the offensive activity we carried out in the last few days, the ground forces are expanding the ground activity this evening, said Hagari. Okay. Just another thing really quick before we go to those two stories about the priest and the seat. Reuters. Hamas vows, quote unquote, full force after Israel steps up Gaza ground operations. Jerusalem. Hamas said on Saturday its militants in Gaza were ready to confront Israeli attacks with full force after Israel's military widened its air and ground attacks on the Palestinian enclave. I have to question that because they have been pounded for like 21 days. Well, I don't know when the airstrike started. I don't know if they started the first day. They probably did. But for about 21 days, they've been pounded by the Air Force with airstrikes. So fighting back against Israel with full force, quote unquote, I find that hard to believe, but I don't know. Okay, continuing. The Palestinian militant group that rules Gaza said earlier its fighters were clashing with Israeli troops in areas near the border with Israel after Israel reported intensified attacks in Gaza. The armed wing of Hamas said late on Friday its fighters were clashing with Israeli troops in Gaza's northeastern town of Beit Hanoun, and that in the central area of Al-Burej. Quote, the Al-Qassam brigades and all the Palestinian resistance forces are completely ready to confront Israel's aggression with full force and frustrate its incursions, Hamas said in a statement early on Saturday. Netanyahu and his defeated army will not be able to achieve any military victory, referring to the Israeli prime minister. Okay, so I guess we'll see what happens. Now, before we talk about America and its wars, and by the way, there's an interesting prophecy that I didn't know about that I want to share with you in connection with war. But before we get to that, I want to go over these stories really quick. So this is from Israel 365 News. For the first time in 2,000 years, priests blessing soldiers going to war. Okay, like I've said many times on the channel, in Judaism, really the only tribe that they can still identify to a certain degree is Levi, because they mostly have the last name Levi, Levi, things like that. Or if they're one of the sons of Aaron, or the priests, because remember, that's how it was during the law of Moses. You had the priests, which were the sons of Aaron, and then you have the rest of the tribe of Levi, the Levites. So the way that they identify the priests, even to this day, is with the name Cohen. In Hebrew, Cohen is priest, and then Kohanim is the plural. So they are identified, and here you see Kohanim wearing their priestly garments, and this would have been for like some kind of event. They've done a lot of like reenactments, and they've been doing a lot of training in preparation for the third temple, and I've covered that before on the channel. They've actually done some animal sacrifices, and they do other things, other reenactments. For the Feast of Tabernacles, they did like a reenactment for the water and wine libation that would have been done in the temple. So what you see here are Kohanim. Now, these are the equivalent of our our modern day in the church, in this dispensation, the priests, the office of priest in the Aaronic priesthood. And deacons and teachers would be like the equivalent of Levites. You know how the Levites, they assisted in the temple, they cleaned up things, they also taught. They taught in the temple. Notably, we have the office of teacher, and so you have that. So we know that in the way things work in the church is that if you're in the office of priest, you cannot give a blessing. That's something that's reserved for the Melchizedek priesthood. In fact, I pulled that up here. This is on the church website. The July 2012 New Era, an article called The Importance of Priesthood Blessings. And it says here, such blessings are conferred by holders of the Melchizedek priesthood, which has the keys of all the spiritual blessings of the church. So the Aaronic priesthood, deacons, teachers, priests, they cannot give blessings. But I don't think that takes away from what happened here. Not to say that they're blessings would work the same way that our blessings would work, but I feel like it's drawing them closer to that time when they accept Christ, and then they learn about the church, the restored church, and how the priesthood is nowadays. That we have the Melchizedek priesthood. We don't just have the Aaronic priesthood. So just keep that in mind. I think that this could be something that is preparing them for what is to come. Again, for the first time in 2,000 years, priests blessing soldiers going to war. All right. When Israel was attacked 2 weeks ago, Saul Teplitsky leaped into action, trying to help Israel from his home in the Bronx. A young man in the community, the son of a friend, was traveling to Israel to serve in the IDF, and Saul, a Cohen, or a priest, decided he wanted to give the young man a blessing before he went off to war. As the male descendants of biblical Aaron, Kohanim are mandated with blessing the nation of Israel. But this is usually limited to blessing the congregation in synagogue. Saul felt that it was time that at this time of dire need, his priestly blessing would serve to protect the soldier. Now, this is really interesting because if this really is the first time in 2,000 years in Judaism that a Cohen is given a blessing outside the synagogue, and in this kind of way, then that seems pretty significant, because that's something like what we would do in the church. We give blessings of comfort and we give blessings of healing. I actually, look at this. I received a blessing before I deployed to Afghanistan. The night before, as I was like getting all my stuff ready, I was like under just a lot of stress because I was going to be leaving my family. And even though I had plenty of notice that we were deploying, the time came, the moment of truth, and I was just like, I was really stressed. You know, I was going to be missing out on, I didn't go for the entire thing, but it was going to be 16 or 18 months, the deployment. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be missing out on all that time watching my girls grow up. So I was like really stressed, and I called a friend of mine in the ward, who was also in the Army, but in a different unit, asked him to come and give me a blessing of comfort, and it was great, and it worked. So I am someone who received an actual priesthood blessing going to war, and now the Jews, for the first time in 2,000 years, according to this article, they're doing the same thing. That's like mind-blowing to me. Like I said, it's like they're being prepared for when this actually becomes a reality, when they have the priesthood again, not just the Aaronic, but also the Melchizedek. Okay, so anyway, Saul hurried to the airport, and after a bit of searching, found the young man among a large pile of duffel bags full of donated equipment for his IDF unit, preparing to leave for Israel. Saul made his unusual request. I am a Cohen, Saul said. Can I give you a bracha, which is a blessing? Saul asked. Saul placed his hands on the young man's head. Okay? Saul placed his hands on the young man's head and gave him a heartfelt blessing. The young man's eyes filled with tears. This sounds like we're like reading something out of like the Liahona right now. Several other young men who were about to leave to fight in the war against Hamas gathered round, asking to be blessed. Word quickly got out, and Saul organized a WhatsApp group to connect soldiers with Kohanim. Since coordinating Kohanim and soldiers was impossible, each soldier was assigned an individual Cohen who sent a video of him blessing the soldier by name. The list grew at an unbelievable rate. Within a few days, over 4,000 names of soldiers were signed up, and over 300 Kohanim were assigned to bless them individually. It's so great. I like that. So I feel like it's just another sign of the times. At risk of repeating myself too many times, it really seems like the Lord is preparing them in many different ways. It's been kind of a while since I've like really done any stories like this on Israel 365 News and seeing what's the new things that are happening in Israel or in Judaism. But there have been a lot of things. I might as well make another spreadsheet. I might as well make another spreadsheet just for all the developments in the world of Judaism. You know, so cool. It's so cool. Okay, now let's go on to this. U.S. Jews supply thousands of tzitzit to Israeli soldiers. So like I said, tzitzit, it's not garments. Okay, it's not garments, but it was commanded in the Old Testament. Okay, so here's like a picture. What it is, it's these what do you call them? Like tassel or braid type things that hang off the four corners of the garment, like the top. Here's some other pictures you can like look online, and you have all these different types. They have, okay, so if I'm not mistaken, the talit, I should have looked that up. Talit, shopping. Okay, so here you have the talit, right? And there's two different versions, is my understanding. You have the type that you wear like on the outside of your clothes, and then you have the tzitzit that are on the four corners or whatever. And this is what they look like. But then they also have talit with tzitzit that you can wear underneath your clothes, which would be similar to the temple garment. Again, it's not the same thing doctrinally, but it's almost like, I don't know. So like, look, here you have this, you know, you just wear it underneath your shirt, and then you have the tzitzit that hang out, right? Okay, this is where you find it in Numbers 15. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe of the borders a riband of blue. And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that ye may look upon it, and remember all the commandments of the Lord, and do them. Now, that's one of the functions of wearing the temple garment. So they share a similarity. I don't know if like during the law of Moses, I don't know. I haven't researched this, and I don't think there's very much to research. But I wonder if like during the law of Moses, the talit and tzitzits were kind of like I don't want to say a proto temple garment, because you had that before the law of Moses. But since they were living a lower law, I wonder if it was kind of like a like a lesser type of temple garment, you know, the same way that the Aaronic priesthood is like a preparatory priesthood, and it was a lesser law. I wonder if this is like the lesser version of the temple garment. You get what I'm saying? I don't know that for sure, but whatever. It has somewhat the same function. Remember all the commandments of the Lord, and to do them, in that ye seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, after which ye use to go a-whoring, that ye may remember and do all my commandments, and be holy unto your God. I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, to be your God. I am the Lord your God. Okay, so, and then I have this right here. I looked it up in the Institute student manual, and it's just like it's just like what it sounds. It adds here that the blue, like, you know, let's go back to the talit. You see how it has like this dark blue or kind of blackish color, but it's like blue. That, according to the Institute manual, it says blue signifies the heavens, and so symbolizes the spiritual realm or godliness. Okay. And it's interesting because the talit is the inspiration for the Israeli flag. I did a video about that a long time ago. So essentially, The Israeli flag is basically the garment, or at least it's again the like Mosaic law version of the temple garment. And I could be completely wrong about that, but you understand what I'm saying. So like when you look at the Israeli flag, you're basically looking at a talit. It's a talit turned into a flag, essentially. Okay, so back to the article. U.S. Jews supply thousands of tzitzit to Israeli soldiers. Here you go. It's wearing the talit and the tzitzit. As the Israel Defense Forces prepare to move into Gaza to destroy the Hamas terrorist group, an American rabbi affiliated with the Chabad Lubavitch Hasidic movement has launched a campaign to supply Israeli soldiers with tzitzit, or ritual fringes. By wearing fringes on a four-cornered garment, religious Jews fulfill the biblical commandments mentioned in Numbers 15, verses 37 to 41, which we just read, and Deuteronomy 22:12. As of Thursday, the fundraising drive under the slogan "Spiritual Armor," which is interesting because that's how we view the temple garment, that it's a protection, has raised almost $50,000, delivering some 3,000 pairs of tzitzit to IDF troops. Quote, "We know that tefillin," that's like, I don't know if you guys know what tefillin is. Probably some of you do, but let me just pull it up so you can see. It's these, you see this right here, like these strap things that they wear. And then I believe in this like little box thing right here, it has verses from the Torah, maybe even complete books. I can't remember. That'll be for another time, or maybe if you know, put it in the comments below. So we know that tefillin and tzitzit are our spiritual armor, which provides special protection. Isn't that so interesting? That they have this kind of concept, and we do as well. That was from Rabbi Shmeri Gurari. The idea was born after, quote, "a dear friend who works with soldiers throughout the year reached out to me. He informed me that many soldiers, most of whom do not ordinarily wear tzitzit, would like to wear tzitzit on the battlefield." Now think about that. So that's what I'm talking about when I say that it's almost like helping them become more religious. Like when you have traumatic events in life, war or a death, or all like different things, sometimes that will cause people to draw closer to God. And in this case, again, this very well could be like a small preparatory thing for some individuals to get closer to the Lord. And then ultimately, if they make it through the second coming and they accept Christ, then they'll have already kind of gone through this process. And then when they go to the temple and get endowed, they'll already have gone through kind of like a dry run in a sense by doing this. So it's so cool. And then later it says, oh no, that's just a why did I? Okay, I didn't need to highlight that. So spiritual things are coming out of this war, which I find very, very interesting, although not surprising. Okay, now let's switch over to X really quick. So here's the top part of the Gaza Strip. You can see the border right here. And so this is essentially the area that they did the incursion into tonight, right here, Beit Hanoun. All right. Levant, Kimmel, map, Gaza, Israel conflict, axis of conflict between Gazan armed groups and the Israeli army. So this one, according to this, and I don't know necessarily that this is right, but I don't doubt that it's wrong. Okay, Beit Lahia axis. In Beit Lahia, or Lahia, the IDF launched a naval offensive simultaneously with the shock shelling. The attack from the sea was halted when clashes broke out in Beit Hanun over here. And then you have this, and then you have East Berej, Jor al-Dik axis. So it seems like these were kind of like the three areas that were involved in this incursion tonight, which may actually be the offensive, or the ground invasion. But I guess we'll see. This is a hospital. I guess it's the largest hospital in Gaza, and they're saying that it's basically a main operations center, or as it says right here, main headquarters for Hamas terrorist activity. And then they give this kind of, this computer graphic, imagery of what it would look like underground. So all the talk has been, well, they're at some point going to have to take this out, and it's underneath a hospital. So, of course, that's going to complicate things and make people mad. And I'm guessing that they probably wouldn't hit it with an airstrike. So maybe, well, I don't know. Or they would make sure that the hospital is cleared first, and then they would hit it with an airstrike, or just leave bombs in there or something. But this is something to keep on your radar. Here's some protests. This one's New York police have blocked the entrances to the station as more people continue to arrive to join the protesters. And I'm guessing this is Grand Central Station because I've seen it a million times in movies. Let me know if I'm right or wrong, but I think that is. It looks like it. I just wanted to show you that. Oh yeah, there's this too. There's a billion. There are so many videos just like this where you have people that are against Israel taking down these kidnapped, flyers that people are putting up on telephone poles and walls and stuff like that. So people are really upset about it, but there's so many different people that are doing this. Okay, Intel Doge. U.S. officials inform CBS News that Israeli movement into Gaza appears to be a rolling start, quote unquote, to an invasion. So I wanted to verify that, and it looks like it's in this video right here. Rolling start to ground invasion in Gaza appears to be underway. So who knows what that means, if it really is just kind of a preparatory incursion, or if it's not going to be so temporary, it's going to be kind of like the tip of the spear. But I guess we'll see. Trey Yingst, the guy that we started this video out with, lots of outgoing Israeli artillery fire. And I'm not going to play that, but you can hear it. And I heard it earlier on that other YouTube channel, Agenda Free TV. Then you have this tonight. OSINT Defender, the Islamic Resistance in Iraq, has announced that it has carried out an attack tonight utilizing 2 kamikaze drones against the U.S. operations base at Al-Tanf in southern Syria near the border with Jordan and Iraq. So we already know that there's already been a few attacks on U.S. forces, and now here's the latest one, and it happened tonight. I don't know if it was in response to Israel's incursion, but here we have yet another attack on U.S. forces. And then I just wanted to show you what's going on in Qatar and Yemen. You remember, if you saw that video that I did, Yemen got hit by essentially a hurricane or a cyclone that was going to bring lots and lots of rain. And I said it's really interesting because Yemen had recently, before this storm came, had fired missiles at Israel that were intercepted by missiles from the USS Carney, which is a destroyer, a U.S. Navy destroyer. And so you had that from Yemen. Then they got hit by a storm, which I'm about to show you, which caused lots of flooding. And Qatar has also, been causing problems when it comes to this war. Qatar is where Al Jazeera is based out of, and I'd have to double check, but I think that Israel officially kicked Al Jazeera out. Let me just show you some of these headlines to show you what's going on with Qatar. Blinken says he asked Qatar to change Al Jazeera's Israel coverage. Blinken says he asked Qatar Prime Minister to rein in Al Jazeera's Israel-Hamas war coverage. Turn down the volume. So they're causing problems when it comes to Al Jazeera and, adding to tensions. Here you have Qatar sentences 8 Indians to death on charges of spying for Israel. So there's been some issues. Let's see. Yeah, that's all I want to show you. So after all that, so here you have Qatar, okay? Heavy flood due to extreme rainfall in the streets of Al Doha, Qatar. And this was on the 26th that this was posted. You have this massive floods in the Doha, capital of Qatar. So it's in the capital. You have flooding in the capital. I'm bringing this up because I've proposed, I'm obviously not the first one, but there's many who feel that there's asymmetric warfare in that weather systems can be manipulated or enhanced or redirected through various means. So if that's the case, then it may not be an accident that Qatar's capital is being flooded. Here's another one, more flooding footage in Doha, Qatar. This is also Qatar. Okay. And then, meanwhile, in Yemen, the country that sent those missiles heading toward Israel, they got hit by Cyclone Tej. There's that. Flash flooding in Gaza airport. Flood situation in Al Mara, Yemen, after the passage of Cyclone Tej, while another image shows conditions of Socotra after the passage of the cyclone, which caused nearly 15 meter storm surge. Just a few days ago, Yemen pro-Hamas factions tried to hit Israel with high explosive missiles. The U.S. shot down those missiles. Behold Yemen now. Massive flood hits Al Mara province in Yemen. Don't touch Hashem, which means the name, or you could say the Lord. So don't touch the Lord, apple of his eye. And there goes a dumpster. There goes a dumpster. It showed up for Yemen. Cyclone Tej unleashes flooding chaos in Al Mara. So I'll add these to Google Earth later into my spreadsheet. I don't have it updated right now. And I'm sorry also that I haven't done the Flood the Earth challenge recently for sharing the Book of Mormon. It's been hard for me to put out videos this week for some reason. I've just been, swamped with different things. So I'll try and have that. I'll try and have it updated for next week. So if you haven't heard back from me, and it's been like about 5 days since you posted about sharing the Book of Mormon, don't worry. I'm getting to it, and there will be an update next week. I'll try and have that done for Monday. Okay, so you got that going on. Let me check really quick how we're doing. Okay. Wanted to talk about a few more things. Let me show you this prophecy that I didn't know about before. So I found this as I was looking for will live to see in the scripture citation index, because I wanted to see if there's like any statements about, the people now living will live to see whatever, the second coming, or they'll live to see whatever. And I came across this. This is Harold B. Lee. The name of the talk is Day of Preparation, October 1951 General Conference. Let me just read this interesting little bit right here. Okay. A voice of warning. The responsibilities of the prophets in every dispensation have been to sound a warning for the nations to repent and come unto the Lord and avoid the judgments that otherwise will be sent upon mankind. President Wilford Woodruff, in a sermon delivered to temple workers in Brigham City in June 1894, made a remarkable prediction and a statement with regard to these matters. Now, this is interesting because I know this article that he's referring, there's an article about this in the Young Woman's Journal. And that's one of the articles that you can go to read Wilford Woodruff talking about the fact that the 4 angels in the book of Revelation were unleashed to bring judgment upon the earth at the dedication of the Salt Lake Temple in 1893. So the temple was dedicated 1893. A year later, they had this temple workers excursion. That's what it's called in the magazine, temple workers excursion. And so it looks like he also said this. Okay, a part of his sermon is as follows, quote, "We cannot draw a veil over the events that await this generation. No man that is inspired by the Spirit and power of God can close his ears and his eyes or his lips to these things. When I have the vision of night open continually before my eyes and can see the mighty judgments that are about to be poured out upon this world, when I know these things are true and are at the door of the Jew and Gentile, while I know they are true, while I am holding this position before God and this world, can I withhold my voice from lifting up a warning to this people and to the nations of the earth?" Now, I've read this part before, but then it skips down to another part. "And from this very day, they shall be poured out." Oh, no, I've read this part too. "Calamities and troubles are increasing in the earth, and there is a meaning to these things." And then it skips down some more. "Read the scriptures and the revelations. They will tell you about these things. Great changes are at our doors." Now look at this. Listen to this right here. "The next 20 years will see mighty changes among the nations of the earth." The next 20 years. So he is talking in 1894. So that would take you to 1914. Okay. 1894 to 1914. "You will live to see these things whether I do or not. I have felt oppressed with the weight of these matters, and I have felt that I must speak of them here. It is by the power of the gospel that we shall escape." So he's quoting from the Improvement era, so I guess it was published there too. Okay, now back to Harold B. Lee. He enumerated a number of the calamities which he had foreseen, and then said, quote, "They are at our very doors, and not even this people will escape them entirely," end quote. 20 years later, as he had predicted, lacking 1 month, the Great World War of July 1914 broke in all its fury. Many of you here have been witnesses of the fulfillment of what President Woodruff said. And from that time to the present time, there has been an increasing intensity of the troubles and difficulties upon the earth. He sounded a note of comfort and blessing, however, in his closing statement. "Remember this and reflect upon these matters," he said. "If you do your duty and I do mine, we shall have protection and shall pass through the afflictions in peace and safety." I love this, and I'm going to add it to my spreadsheets. I haven't yet, but I will. I love it because so many people are so focused on the future and think that everything in the scriptures has to do with us right now in 2023. We haven't seen anything yet, as though everything before now was nothing. And that's not the case. Everybody skips over World War I, World War II, the Cold War, and other really important events that were part of this dispensation. The last days are not just for us. They've been happening ever since Joseph Smith, at least when we're talking about this dispensation. So here he prophesied about World War I. He gave a 20-year warning, and then World War I happened. And maybe it's important to note that it wasn't exactly 20 years. It was off by a month. And so when we look at other things, maybe that could be the case with other things too, like other prophecies, or other time frames and stuff like that. So yeah, there you go. That is really interesting, isn't it? Okay, now to finish this off, I wanted to just share an idea now thinking about the United States. So I did this video a long time ago. This is actually one of my very first videos. Only 17 years of peace in U.S. history, and when's the next war? Okay. So what happened that month, I was really upset because the United States ended the Afghanistan war. And essentially, I guess you could say we lost. I guess it depends on how you look at it, but it was kind of like a Vietnam-like thing. The Taliban, they're back. They're in control as of right now. I myself had been to Afghanistan, and look where we're at right now. So I was kind of upset, and this was on my mind. And I had the question, so when is the next war going to be? Because the United States has pretty much always been involved in war, but I wanted to see some hard data. So I found this document put together by the VA called America's Wars. And I calculated the time between each war. And now these are just major wars, or these are major wars. It doesn't include all conflicts. Okay, that's much more extensive. But if we're just looking at major wars in American history, the longest stretch of time that we ever went was 29 years between the American Revolution and the War of 1812. And then after that, the next longest time that we went, interestingly, was between World War I and World War II with 23 years. Okay, so you see how it goes. Now, you can take into consideration all of these conflicts, like the American-led intervention in Iraq from 2014 to 2021, American military intervention in Niger, which is in Africa, 2013 until present, Operation Observant Compass from 2011 to 2017. Looks like that was in Africa. And there's just a really long list. Lots and lots and lots of conflicts and operations and stuff like that. So I think that this is what's being referred to in this article called War History Online. This is War History Online. The article is called Believe It or Not, Since Its Birth, the USA has only had 17 years of peace. I'm not going to read through this, but it goes through, all the details and shows you how that's the case, which is pretty crazy. Again, going back to this video that I did, and I was like, when is the next war? Well, it turns out that the answer is potentially this year, potentially next year. If the United States gets involved in this war, if it does escalate and it becomes a regional war, and if the U.S. goes up against Iran and Iran decides that it wants to have a full-scale war, then yeah, it could be this year or it could be next year. So if that's the case, we will have only had like a 2 or a 3 year break between that war and the Afghanistan war. And, I tend to believe that there are modern day secret combinations. When you watch the news, things appear one way. They appear the way that everybody would expect. It's like, oh, these are nations that are fighting each other. They have their own interests. And I think that's partially true. But I think that there are other actors, other powers in the world that influence things behind the scenes and maybe sometimes cause things to happen. And so I think it's interesting that, the war in Afghanistan ended. We had a couple of years of recovery, and now it's time for the next thing to happen. And I could go on and on about that, but that's beyond the scope of this channel. And typically, different platforms such as this one don't like you to get into those kind of things. So I'll just have to leave it at that. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you don't. But I think that when the millennium is ushered in and we learn everything that's been happening the last 6,000 years, because we have that promise. It talks about it in D&C 88, how everything that the Lord has been doing for the last 6,000 years is going to be revealed, and everything done by mankind, everything done in darkness is going to be revealed. I think that we're probably going to be shocked to find out how much power and how much influence and how many schemes and things behind the scenes were going on in world history, where history officially records one thing, like, oh, this happened because of this and this and this and this, when in reality, those are only partial truths or just complete facades. Just complete facades. I'm not so sure. Well, maybe once we're in the millennium, people will be prepared. But I think that if certain things were revealed right now, it would be really shocking, upsetting for some, to find out the way that the world really works. And hopefully that's something that you already realize. It's something that Ezra Taft Benson talked about quite a bit. That was one of his main themes, was secret combinations, people in power, people in government, corporations, different industries throughout the world, with their goals and their agendas and their alliances and master plans and stuff like that. So at some point, all that's going to come to light. And so when we look at this war, for example, when we look at the Afghanistan war, it just suddenly ended, 20 years of war. And then all just suddenly, well, okay, we're done now. And then we leave. And then 2 years later, now we have this potentially Armageddon war going on. Now we've had time to recuperate a little bit and get ready for the next one. And it looks like it's maybe here. So, and I hope that it is. I hope that it is, not because of the suffering and the death and all that stuff, but because it means that it's the end and we can finally be done with all this nonsense that's been going on for 6,000 years, and evil will be destroyed, and there's not going to be any more secret combinations anymore, because Christ is going to be here. He's going to be king, and there's not going to be any corruption in his government, and it's going to be amazing. And for the first time in world history, there's not going to be secrets and secret pacts and secret signs and all that stuff that people engage in nowadays. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.